our second guest of the evening, and our final guest is Coach Nick Mourouzis. He's been our DePauw's head coach for 20 years consecutively, and he's done a great job. And we're honored to have him on the Eric and Cindy Show. So let's welcome Coach Nick at this time. Welcome on the show. Thank you very much. Well, Coach Nick, thanks for coming on the show. Congratulations on your victory at Monon. It was a very great victory. It pulls you guys now to, what, 50, 48, and 9, I think, are the statistics on overall Monon, DePauw leading. It's a really great job. And, of course, the Monon Bell, great tradition since 1932, right? Since that's when they instituted the bell as a... could you explain a little background of that? Do they institute it as something to do with the railroad? How does that work?
The Monon train donated it as the ballad that we play all the time says, to the victors as a symbol not to quit. And we didn't quit yesterday.
No, you sure didn't. That's true. Well, that's good. And, of course, you guys, this is the 5th straight victory for DePauw, which is the first time since the 60s that either DePauw or Wabash has won 5 straight consecutively. So it kind of puts together a nice streak for DePauw. No
question.
Definitely.
Gives us a chance to go for 6 next year and set a record all by ourselves.
That would be fabulous. And also, the win also in the Monon Bell game brings you into a 3-way tie for first place in the SCAC, from what I understand, with Sewanee and Trinity.
No question. Trinity won the championship outright because we were in 2nd place with Sewanee, and they had beaten both of us. So they were already declared representative of the NCAA Division III championship. And they got beat yesterday by Millsaps, who scored several touchdowns, had 2 interceptions. They ran back 2 interceptions against Trinity and beat Trinity, and we didn't find out until last night after we got back, and our young men were really excited because we were co-champs, so we're calling ourselves champions. You know, when you're you're a champion.
Oh, so, sure, yeah.
And then you find out later when we go 6-4 after we beat Wabash, made their record 6-4. But the 3 of the 4 teams that we lost to, the ironic thing is if we won our first game against Rhodes, which we should have, we'd have been going to playoffs. And
funny how the chips fall.
Right, no question. But 3 of the 4 teams that we lost to are in the playoffs. Trinity's won, and Hope, I found out, beat Albion 14-7, so they're representing the Michigan Conference. And Hanover, of course, is going in the Indiana, that Hoosier Conference there. And so 3 of the 4 teams that we lost to are going to the playoffs.
So what is the likelihood for DePauw doing postseason? Is there any hope of a playoff bid, or is that...
No, that's over.
That's over. Okay.
Because Trinity was declared, because we ended up with a 3-way tie.
Sure.
At 4-2, 3 teams with 4-2. But Trinity goes because they beat both Sewanee and
tiebreaker.
So,
That's
so
cool. Well, talk a little bit about the kind of momentum that you guys get as a football team when you lose your first 4 games and then come back and win your next 6. I mean,
well, I'll tell you what happened. And we had an open date at the end of September there, September the 30th. And our first 4 games, see, we have no spring practice.
Right.
And we're putting in, out of the 7 coaching positions we have, 6 of the coaches were new. In fact, I went from the receivers back to quarterbacks. David Hill's the only one in the secondary and the defensive backfield that kept the same position. So we had 6 coaching changes out of the 7 positions in football. And we put in a new defense with Coach Kazmierzak putting in the defense. And on offense, we changed at least 2/3 of our offense simply because we had some great receivers and we wanted to capitalize on their ability. And Jason was a baseball pitcher, Jason Lee, and he can throw the football, and he's a bright young man, and so we really had a lot of fun. We started moving it. In fact, we're moving it right now. As a team, we're playing real well right now. We'd love to be going to the playoffs.
It kind of makes you wish you had like an extended season, like maybe a couple more games at the end.
No question. And after those first 4 games, we decided to, and I told our staff and I told our squad, those first 4 games are out of the way. Our preseason is done. In fact, we blocked out the month of September, and we put on there a new beginning. And we said if we play well and not beat ourselves, we can win the rest of the games, which we did, and we swept. And we had a motto going into the season: all-out effort, all the time, all the way. And I told before on Saturday morning there that if we do that, then we've really accomplished, you know, a fantastic goal after losing our first
Definitely.
4. And we're in all those 4 games. We're in them right to the end.
And yeah, and your combined like points that you got beat by them, 18 points over 4 games. That's astounding.
So that's a tribute to our young men of not quitting and coming back, and great senior leadership, and going after 6 in a row, which I think is fantastic. And they rightfully deserve maybe a ring that says champions on them, and the seniors get to put on there, they've won 4 bells in a row, and not too many graduates in the football program
can't say that very often.
That's
exactly. It's very good. So let's talk a little bit specifically about the Monon game. Now, in the Monon game, there was a lot, especially more in the first half, there was a lot of turnovers by both sides. There were turnovers by Wabash and turnovers by DePauw, but in the end, I think, is it correct, DePauw came out +5 on the turnover ratio? What kind of difference does that make in a game when there's
Well, I made a statement going in, the team that makes the fewest mistakes will win. Well, they lost 5 out of 6 fumbles, and we intercepted 2 of their passes, so we got 7 takeaways.
Wow.
We threw an interception, and we had 1 fumble, so that you subtract the turnovers from the takeaways, and we get a +5, which is really championship. You can lead the nation if you keep that pace.
Yeah, +5 every game. Yeah,
right,
definitely.
Yeah, be outstanding. But and I said also that if we win a turnover takeaway margin, that would you know, it'll enhance our chances of winning the ball game. And there's no question, because if you win a turnover takeaway margin, you're 90% of the time you're going to win your game.
Definitely. I guess now we have some footage from the end of the game, the touchdown followed by the controversial 2-point conversion that we can look at and get your input on that. This is the touchdown.
Well, that was Jason Lee throwing the ball to Stevens, which was really his 3rd choice. But he talked about that that backside post is open, and you talk about courage, and I talk about courage on Friday night. But there's 2 young men that Jason Lee, who tore up his knee against center, had tore up his anterior cruciates, that's going to have an operation. And John Stevens, that caught the ball, broke the thumb, is navicular, that's going to take, he has an operation coming up next week. In the next 2 weeks, they'll both be getting their operations to correct those injuries. And so you talk about courage, those young men, that proves to you in the Monon Bell Classic, they don't want to miss it.
Well,
if there's an injury, they're going to play.
They're playing injured. I mean, they play straight through. It's the end of the season.
No question.
That's outstanding, and doing so successfully while playing injured as well is very great. So I guess we kind of caught a little of that footage on the end, but the 2-point conversion, that was after the touchdown that put DePauw ahead by 4 points. What was going on with that? I couldn't exactly tell.
Well, Bill Wagner, our sports information director, said he has a picture of it, but to me, Joe landed in the end zone with the ball, and Jason Lee and our players were really upset, and I saw Joe land in the end zone with the football. And I think the official made a decision too quickly, you know what I'm saying, instead of observing it.
Sure.
And I guess there it is right there.
Sure.
And
there's
see,
that,
it looks
there's
like
that
he's in the end zone.
It does.
You know, and
so do you think like the officials thought he had his knee down before? Is that?
Well, possibly. That was a decision. But if the knee's down, your end. If you land like he landed, simultaneously with the knee and the ball in the end zone, it's a touchdown.
Should be a touchdown.
The ball crossed the plane. The minute it crossed the plane, it's a touchdown. And I told him, I said, if that is not, and we've analyzed it, looks like it's in. I said, if that's not a touchdown, I'll send you a $5 bill. I told the official. And we're really upset. Our players got upset, but the fans and the student body, I mean, that really helped us out.
That really started to energize. And I guess we have also a tape of the next kick that was kicked off and that touched the Wabash player. So can we see that right now? We'll talk about that. This is Ben kicking off here. Yeah, boy.
Is this the one that goes?
Yeah, this is the one that goes in the end zone. It's kind of off the picture.
Okay, went through the young man's.
Right. You can see it kind of back in the backfield there. The ball's still live in the end zone.
Okay, now what happened there? Number one, the referee in the beginning said that it touched him. Well, regardless whether it touched him or went through, the ball is free and in the end zone. So if we go down and recover it, it's a touchdown. But if you notice, the official, we listened to it last night, the official blows his whistle the minute the ball crossed the
plane in the end zone.
But that's a high school rule.
Right.
And that's a high school rule, and he shouldn't have done it. That's a mistake. And the other mistake they made, and you know, this isn't sour grapes, but is that when we had 12 men on the field, and we had illegal participation,
that's
it's
what
a 5-yard penalty and not 15.
I noticed that they penalized you 15 yards for illegal participation. I noticed that. So what was it?
So they wouldn't have scored on that. Number one, we made a mistake by having 12 out there. I can't recall exactly if it was 3rd and long yardage, so the 5 yards wouldn't have made a difference. But we gave them another opportunity. But they still had to punt the ball, and they wouldn't have scored. So we would have held them really to 10 points.
Yeah. But also, another thing that was kind of typical of the season this year is that you spent a little more, considerably more rather, time passing the ball than rushing the ball. At least your production came more out of rushing. This year, statistics, a little over 2,200 yards in passing and a little short of 1,000 yards in rushing. Is that because of Jason Lee? Is that his performance, or is that just he's just more adept to passing?
Eric, what happened there is, like I said, we changed our offense and we went more to a passing offense because we had outstanding receivers, probably the best group of receivers we've had since I've been here in 20 years. And so we were trying to capitalize on that. So we threw the ball more. There's no question. In one game, we threw for 486 yards. But if you can run a little and pass, and you keep the team, guessing, and it helps you. But if that's the only way you can move the football, then that's why we resorted to pass.
And it certainly doesn't hurt that he's got 49% completion rate over the season. I mean, that's outstanding. That's MVP numbers for NFL if you complete that many passes. But so another thing that kind of hurt DePauw was the amount of penalties they received, not only over the season but also in the Bell game. It ended up not hurting them that much, but when you get 10 penalties for 112 yards. Talk a little bit about the impact that has on the whole team.
Well, number one, I talk in that ball game about emotional control. Okay, and we've had a lot of penalties. And I went into the game and I knew this. I said, because those officials are coming from the North Coast Conference. They came from all the way over in Cleveland, northeastern Ohio. And I said, we have to play beyond officials. We have to. The outcome of the game can't be determined by officiating. And thank goodness that occurred.
Didn't happen.
And we've had a lot of penalties. In fact, I even show the penalties to our squad, to our peer group, and say, hey, some of these penalties are foolish. Now, we had several yesterday. One young man, and I always say that if the young man's down, the opponent has the ball down on the ground, that you go over him. If he's up, you can go through him. Well, they were down, and our guys went in and speared them, which is, we don't teach that. But in the heat of the contest, when the guy gets emotional, and he's going to do that. That's why I talk about emotional control in that game every year, and I always will. And we had 2 of those, and those are 15 yards apiece. That's 30 yards right there, and that really hurts us. And but those are the 2 ones that, we should definitely eliminate those. I mean, you can't have, and we try to. We talk about it all the time. One game we got it down to only 2 penalties. But we had 10 against us, and Wabash only had 2.
2 against them. That's
and then you can look at situations that more could have been called, but you can't complain about officiating.
Now, a lot of talk has been that, especially during last game, there was a lot of people holding 4 fingers in the air, symbolizing that DePauw controls the 4th quarter. But over the season, DePauw has done traditionally better in the second half. They've come out, they've played pretty well in the first and second half, but they turn it on, they close it in the 3rd and 4th quarters, and that was definitely true here. I mean, when you have stuff like in the 3rd quarter, you guys were 1 for 3 in 3rd down, and in the 4th quarter, you were 4 for 4 in 3rd down conversions. And that type of consistency in the 3rd quarter has a tendency to pull you guys through. Talk a little bit about how that helps out.
Well, it's like the NFL. They said the best coaching takes place at halftime, where teams that come out and make adjustments, the best adjustments always helps out. When we go with a passing attack, Eric, you don't know exactly. Every team plays a little differently. And so by the time you get rolling there, start getting rolling by the 2nd quarter, and in the second half you make adjustments, and that's what you go with. And that's true defensively. You say, what are they trying to do to us? And then you make adjustment at halftime, and in the second half, you should be if we're doing a good job of
more
coaching,
adjusted,
we
right.
should be better.
Should be doing better.
And it depends on the players. They're the ones that execute it. You know, you can be there as coaches, but the players are the ones that execute and get the job done.
Okay, and I guess it kind of tells a lot about a football team. It's kind of typical of DePauw's year. When you guys have a lot of adversity in a game, you have some penalties. You have 112 yards of penalties. You have less possession time than Wabash, and you have some questionable officiating calls. But yet you still come out in the end winning by 10 points over a tough Wabash team. And that certainly doesn't that like signify the heart that DePauw has a lot and the persistence that they have?
No question. Well, a part of that is because of the turnover takeaway margin.
Sure.
We won that with a +5. That's going to always help you.
Right.
And that's a key thing. And you know, we always talk about never quitting. You know, they have a motto up there that says Wabash always fights. Well, you can always fight, but the key thing is I think we're one better on that, and than that statement. When we say, and when I came here, I started saying, I said, we're going to not quit. That's going to be our motto. DePauw never quits, and that's exactly.
And they never did, especially in this game.
That's exactly what we tried to, you know, convey to our young men.
Definitely. So well, congratulations again on the Bell game. And looking, I guess we have some footage now, some kind of celebratory footage from the Monon Bell game that we can cut to right now and take a look at that. It's the last play of the game. And then, of course, everyone rushes towards to get the bell.
That's our victory formation.
There you go, right there, up the flank.
We got two seniors that we got in on that ball game on that very last play.
To get them some playing school. Nice.
Brendan Rodman and Josh Gross. And I want to make a statement about the defense. So our defense,
oh, sure, yes, definitely.
Wabash was averaging 40 points a game.
And they held
the last 4 ball games, and we held them to 17. And theoretically, if we didn't have that 115-yard illegal participation, we could have held them to 10 points. And I think our defensive players did a great job, and the coaches. And I couldn't be more proud of a group of young men and a group of coaches. So it's just it's truly a Monon Bell classic, and that's what it is. Definitely,
and the defense has stepped up just as much as every other person on DePauw's team did. Talk a little bit about the prospects for the future of DePauw football. You're losing a couple linemen. Your offensive line, you're losing most of this year. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We have some good young men there. Basically, we have an outstanding freshman and sophomore class, and hopefully they'll stay intact. Now, our junior class, there will be seniors next year, is the smallest class that I've had here in 20 years. In fact, there are only 9 remaining, and so. We do have a lot of the positions covered. I mean, they're young individuals of all positions. We always need more offensive and defensive linemen. Now, Wabash's offensive line, they had a 305-pounder, a 275-pounder, 250, 260-pounders, and the center was about 250, so they were gigantic size-wise. But our young men, our defensive line, I think controlled the line of scrimmage and did a good job on them. Although they ran some on us, I think they did some different blocking to be able to run on us more so than we thought they could. But we did have a goal of keeping that quarterback, keeping their passing attack to 200 yards or less. Well, he only made 213, so we felt that was a pretty good job. Well done.
Very true.
And I knew they had more yardage than us, 330 to 310 roughly was what it was.
Sure.
And the time of possession, but the key thing is the team that made the fewest mistakes won the ball game, and that's exactly what happened. So
are you looking forward to next season with a promising younger class coming up and hopefully continuing the rich tradition?
No question. We graduate some, we graduate our 2 captains. Well, graduate all our captains, of course, the seniors, but the defensive line, we do have some good young players that'll step in there, and we don't plan to rebuild. We're just going to replace them and continue on, and that's what our motto is, our philosophy has always been. Sounds very good. Well, Coach Nick, Ben, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Congratulations again on your Bell victory. It goes down in the books. It's a very thrilling victory and perhaps one of the best of all time. Thank you very much for inviting us. Hey, no problem. Thank you for coming on the show. And that's all we have for the 3rd episode, and right now we're going to kick it out to Cindy Crawford doing aerobics, but before we do so,
We invite you to look forward to watching the next episode of the Eric and Cindy Show. And for everyone here at the Eric and Cindy Show, my name is Eric Taylor, saying we have the bell and you don't. And now here's Cindy Crawford doing aerobics. Good night.